Oh, geeks! I did not want to have to make this video yet, but I've been seeing more and more shorts and videos about this, and what I find funny is a lot of people are kind of giving it credit to Japan or Korea when we've been doing this for a long time. That's right, geeks, I really didn't want to tell you about this, but this little deal, it really started out as a hack for an A-rig, especially when you're fishing these clear water reservoirs that we fish, because what it does is it gives your A-rig a little more girth. That's right, take a drink, geeks. It's girthy. That's 2 drinks already. There's going to be a lot of that said in this, so you better have the bottle ready. But it has turned into something completely different in how we use it, or at least where we fish it, thanks to the advent of forward-facing sonar. Wait, don't leave the video, because we're not talking about something that is exclusively used with forward-facing sonar. This thing, especially during the wintertime or the early spring in clear water, from the bank, the boat, a kayak, I don't care if you're floating on a big inflatable duck. This thing, well, it's just damn amazing. All right, so what we're talking about is we are talking about an Alabama rig. We're talking about a hack to an Alabama rig, and this is something that you geeks, look, I've seen guys walking down the side of a seawall, or you know, just walking down a bank, do this. Now, I'm going to use one of my favorite A-rigs, which is the Flash Mob Junior. Well-built A-rig, inexpensive, but you'll have to get one that has the blades on it. That's the key. So this is a hack that forever ago started with the Alabama rig. And you know, I hear a lot of people talking now about how this is kind of coming over from Japan and all that. But listen, I remember us doing this when this first come out. I know a lot of people that talked about doing this and told me about doing this. And what it's going to do is give a little more girth, look like a tighter bait ball for your Alabama rig. But again, we started doing something a little bit different. So the way the hack originally started is, of course, on the outside we would have swim baits. So what you can do with this is you can adjust depending on how big you want the bait. We normally put a little bit smaller bait in here, but what we do is we remove the blades and we add a minnow bait. So we would have swim baits all around and minnow baits, 4 minnow baits inside. You can do this with the 8 blade also, and I mean, it's crazy. Now, I've seen some guys use hooks. You know, you're in Virginia, you can actually just put a straight hook on here. It doesn't have to have any weight, because, you know, this is a 375 for this bait. It's probably going to be just a little bit too big. One of my favorites that I like to add is the good old 3-inch Damiki. And so, like I said, this really started out, we would have swim baits all the way around, and we just put some minnow baits or even some grubs inside here. So in the clear water, this would be, like I said, it'd be a bigger bait ball, much tighter, and it'd get you some more bites. So let me show you how to remove the blades and the little tweaks that we make to it, and I'll show you what it looks like with them in the middle. And then we're going to talk about what we're going to put outside, because it's gone a step farther now, and this rig is being used for something quite a bit different. So let's start with the inside and how to take the blades off. So the very first thing that I can tell you is, if you have to adjust, if it's getting back into your swim baits, this, if you'll spin it just a little, it'll actually slide up and down the wire. So you put a little longer on, you want to push it a little bit farther. Now, if it becomes real loose and on the cast, you just take a pair of pliers and crimp down one side of it, and it'll keep from sliding out as bad. But we're going to use the Demikis today, so we're going to leave them, roughly halfway up, because they're only 3 inches. All right, so the very first thing you want to do is take off, and whether you use your fingernail or you use a pair of split ring pliers, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the blade. Now we are going to keep the split ring on, so we're going to take the blade off. We're going to get into our handy dandy box of blades and swivels, snaps and swivels, and we're going to get what's called, in my neck of the woods, so you get you one of these, and we call these hitchhikers. And all you have to do to get these up on here is take the little outside there. All you do is thread that up on there, and there you have it. So we're going to use a Demiki Armor Shad. I don't remember the color of this. I think it's pearl white. This is the 3-inch version. Now this little hitchhiker is a little bit big for this. So you make it good and fat. It's going to stick out a little bit. It ain't going to look the best, because again, this hitchhiker, which is the only size I have, is on here, and there you have it. You do the other 3 that way, and then we'll go to the next step. So this is the way we would do this a lot of times. Like I said, forgive the hitchhikers and the way the screw locks look there. I only have some bigger ones with me today, but this is what we would do back in the day. And then of course we'd put our swim baits on there, and this would make it look a little more realistic. You've got these that don't have as much action on them on the inside, and so you'd have all your drawing power either on your bottom 3. Now in Tennessee, if we were fishing the Tennessee side of this lake, we would put 2 more up here that didn't have hooks on them, and we might go with these again to keep your action on these bottom 3. But what I've been seeing a lot here lately, and something that again that we've already been doing, but there's a lot of people saying it's from, again, Japan or Korea, is when it's ultra clear or it's ultra cold, we go ahead and put a little bigger version of this on the outside, and it becomes a very subtle rig. But since the advent of forward facing sonar, if you guys seen the triple minnow rig that we did the other day, well, this now becomes a however many 8, 9, I don't know what the quadruple or whatever it is for that, but this becomes a 9 minnow rig. So I call it I've heard it called a hover A rig, or an A hover, or hover Alabama rig, or whatever. We just call it an Alabama rig. But what's great about this is now you can weight it any way you want. So you put a couple of jig heads on, or you can go out there and, once the bass are out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of 1/8 ounces on right here, and we'll put 2 other minnow baits with hitchhikers up here. So we've got a 3 hook rig. Sometimes, something that I'll tell you if you want to get it heavier is I always put a little bit here. Now again, like if you're in Virginia, you can actually forgo the hitchhikers and put hooks, just standard hooks, or if you're wanting to fish really deep, But a lot of times in open water, and the whole key to this, just like a minnow rig, is not to overweight it, but instead weight it enough to where you're fishing for these bass in open water and you're able to shake it and move it slowly and keep it in their face. But we'll talk about retrieve a little bit later in the video. Let's finish setting this up. So these are the Exxon Rally Shad. This is smelt. It's one of my favorite colors. A little bit bigger, 3.75. And so we're gonna put that right on there. This is a 1/4 ounce head. I'll put some links down in the description, but I don't know who makes this. And so we're gonna come right back and out right there. Make that head good and fat. And we're just gonna twist it up there, just like you would a normal swim bait. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put our 3 hooks on the bottom 3. So you just come through, latch it back, and you do the other 3 that way. And there you have it. So now we've got what, I don't know what to call it, but we're just gonna call it a Bama Stroll. How's that? That is a Bama Strolling rig. Now, let's talk about rod, reel, line you need to fish this. Now, really depends, rod, reel, line depends on where you're at and what depth level those bass are gonna be at. And again, you can use this fishing it down the bank. We'll talk about that again a little bit later. Now, the bass today for us, they were about 25, 35 feet deep. So we're probably going a little bit light, but as the day goes on with the sun out, a lot of times they'll come up in sun. So we'll see what happens. But you could fish this literally on a medium heavy that has a good soft tip. But this is our Alabama rig rod, and I love this rod. It's made in America right down to the blank. The blank is made in the USA. There's not many companies, rod companies, that do that. This is the core A-rig rod. Like I said, if you go to Tackle Warehouse, they'll be listed under the core umbrella rig rod by Cashin. By the way, geeks, if you want to help the channel out, do me a favor. Go down there in the description, bookmark that link to Tackle Warehouse. I think normally it's either the first or second link in the description, or scan this QR code right here and bookmark it on your phone. We don't do memberships and stuff. We like to be all inclusive with everybody out there and keep everything that we do free. So if you want to help us out, do us a favor. And just when you buy anything from Tackle Warehouse, use that code if you want to support the channel. It's the best, easiest way, and doesn't cost you an extra dime. Now, this rod is a 7'10" heavy mod fast. But I'm telling you, when you're doing this, you can get away easily with a 7-foot medium heavy, maybe moderate. You could probably get away with a medium if you were fishing it super shallow, because it's really, even with all these baits on there, it's really not a lot of weight. I'd probably try and my go-to would probably be a medium heavy rod. But since this is a mod fast, it'll work just fine, and I can get a big, nice long cast with a 7'10". Now, we've got that coupled. You want a slower reel because you want it to hover in front of their face. You want most of the movement to be you shaking the rod. So we've got it paired with a Lew's BB1 Pro. This is the older version. The new one, I've got a bunch of them. They'll work too. It is a 6-4-1. And on here, we've got a neutrally buoyant line in case we need to go heavier, something I like on my A-rig rods. This is K9 line, and it is the Fluoro, which is their co-poly. It's got a little bit more stretch, so it's a little bit more forgiving if you get a nice big fat backlash doing this. And hits 18-pound test. But again, with this, you can go way, way down with it. 10, 12 pounds wouldn't be a problem at all. So make sure you go check out that discount. This co-poly is pretty amazing for those horizontal moving baits, spinner baits, chatter baits, crank baits. You will not be sorry. So what's great about this is you can adjust your weight and it looks extremely natural in the water. And how you're going to fish this is just like you fish a minnow bait. You're going to shake it so that this thing vibrates and the baits just move and pulse in and pulse out. Now you can do this out in the open water, of course, and you can target individual fish just like you do with a minnow bait, but you're going to target them with this. You can go down a bank and you can tight line. Now when I'm casting this is it's a lot of weight, so if they're up shallow, probably don't want to cast it right on their head. You want to cast it a little bit past it and bring it to them. But you're just going to shake the rod tip. Just shake that rod tip. You want to pop. I like to pop the slack. That way it stays kind of in that same sort of depth level. And again, you'll have to adjust the weight. We've got 3/4 ounces on here because we're going to fish a little bit deeper. But you'll have to adjust the weight to keep it at the depth you want it to run at. This is about, these 3/4, probably about 15 to 20, maybe 25 feet is where it's going to work best. Because remember, the more plastic you have on, the more lift you're going to get. And that's a lot of plastic. Now, the other thing is, I love to take this down banks, kind of like the one right here behind me. And the great thing about it is, you know, around wood and some rock, is you just throw it out there to the bank and you just shake it and let it contour that bank and come back to you. You know, you can either do it from a 45 once you know how deep they are. Like we pretty much know they're a little bit deeper, but you know, or you can set back off and just 90 degree it and let it shake it and work right down to you. It will destroy them. They cannot stand that little bit of shake. The colder bluebird sky sort of day right now, I'm probably going to shake it just a little bit less. I mean, the tip is going to be just barely moving. And I will say this, again, I go back to, you probably really want to throw this on like a 7-foot medium heavy, a little bit shorter rod, maybe even a moderate fast. Got a little more bounce to it, makes shaking it a little easier with a bait caster. You know, Hook said it's like anything. Generally, with an A-rig, I'm going to tell you to side set and keep the rod tip down, especially. You know, we were lucky enough to pull a double today. So when you get that double, make sure you keep that rod tip down and you get them in the boat. I don't recommend boat hopping. You've seen me reach out there and grab that line. You know, I was praying. They wasn't huge, but I was praying that, you know, my knot was going to hold up. But other than that, you know, probably a good thing to get a net, because if you got a bunch of hooks on here, it's great. This is a great little bait, and it's something that they just really don't see, especially out in open water, a whole lot. It's finessey. It looks great in the water, and they can't stand it. Now, if you want to go check out a little more in depth about some A-rigs, traditional style of A-rigs, make sure you go check out this video right here. Otherwise, questions and comments in the comment section below. Like it if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you ring that bell, be part of the 100% Watch Squad, and you geeks rock.